Good morning and welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Neeraj Shah and a very interesting list of stocks to be honest, but we'll get there in a bit. First, what the world markets are showing. I don't want to scare with the Omicron cues. They are terrible, but the world markets are taking them in the stride. So very strong close for the U.S. markets. The Dow and S&P and the Nasdaq doing very well for themselves. So good going there. Within that, there are a few things. So one, of course, by virtue of what the Santa rally has done, and even otherwise, frankly, but what by virtue of what the Santa rally has done is give a strong close to 2021, and therefore the S&P 500 is on track for, or the global stocks actually, the MSCI World Index is on track for the third straight year of strong gains. Well, it just shows the power of liquidity, wherein never mind coronavirus, never mind a slumping economy in 2020 and the return scare in 2021. I think the equity markets have had a very buoyant last few years. Could the next year be different? Who knows? Let's wait and watch. I'm not one to predict that. I don't think anybody can. But within that, I think the chops and turns have happened, wherein, for example, in the US too, and I think I was talking about this yesterday in the Indian context, when the US, you are starting to see that most definitely, wherein the travel related stocks are actually coming off and Omicron variant ruined the Christmas party for the sector which was hit hard by coronavirus. This is all the airlines, and they could have done much better somehow. They have failed to do that in the month of December. It's expected that they'll do really well. But I think the last time or yesterday, I read this story about how 2,400 uh, flights were cancelled because of lack of staff. Forget everything else. The staff of the US airlines was hit by the virus, as a result of which they had to cancel the airlines. Can you imagine all the best laid plans kind of coming to the fore? Yeah, I borrowed the title from a book, but nevertheless, the best laid plans of some of the Christmas travelers in the US got disrupted because of the Omicron virus and the flights not taking off. Be that as it may, the markets are doing okay. SGX should be showing a start which is not too bad. So about 112 odd points, so not bad going there. Let's see whether we build on from there or no. And we had a fairly decent outing in trade yesterday, so I don't think there is too much to complain about. Frankly, talking about the outing yesterday, the MOV function will show that how select pharma names, real estate names, etc. had a decent day. I know some of you will complain that this is not as good as the normal MOV function that we show, but excuses for today, we had to use this. But 273 advances to 227 decliners. But in effect, what I'm trying to say is that a bunch of newsmakers did really well for themselves, including companies in the spec chem space, tech space, as well as the pharma space. So to watch out, specialty chemicals seems to be making a bit of a comeback. Now, what's the trade setup today? I think the positive global cues will aid the good sentiment on Dalal Street as well, which was built in Monday's session. So expect that to continue. And while IT and information technology does remain center stage, pharma seems to be making its presence felt, really. I mean, it's made a big comeback in trade yesterday and somehow seems to be kind of showing that select pharma names can actually do really well. And we spoke about this in the trade setup yesterday, the possibility thereof. Fortunately, it's turned out to be right. And that's why I believe that pharma as well as real estate remains top draw. Frankly, in real estate viewers, and probably what I've learned from by talking to so many people is that you should look at stocks which correct less in the event of a correction, and at the first sign of a bounce back really do well. And yes, you can look at a macro tech and say, oh, that is correcting quite thick and fast, but look at a bunch of other real estate stocks and they are holding out fast. Look at the lesser known names, and a bunch of them are just doing so well that they show you a sign that real estate is doing really well for itself. So keep that at the back of your mind. What is not doing well is the foreign institutional investor behavior, which even in a dull season and a low trade session across the world, FIs did sell northwards of 1,000 crores. So much as I thought that there was the starting of a trend wherein from 1,500 to 800 to 271 crores, we're starting to come off. Not really. FIs continue to exit the Indian markets, 1,038 crores. I think One of our guests had mentioned that unless the trade deficit numbers improve, FIs will continue to make a beeline, which was Manish Gunwani. And I think Jeff Dennis mentioned that he believes that the FI selling will continue uh, well into the future. Only exception was Mahesh Nandurkar, who believed that this January we'll see a different tune. Let's wait and watch. There's a new listing today in Supriya Life Sciences. The issue was subscribed 71 times, so expect it to do well on listing. Let's wait and watch. Stocks to focus, as I said, there's a bunch of stocks. Now we're starting to do something additional. So based on trade patterns, we'll bring out a couple of set of stocks which we believe investors could well focus on, both on the large cap and the mid cap end. On the large cap end, we'll start with the large cap end, and I presume we should focus on Z by virtue of the fair degree of short build up yesterday, as well as how the stock really got pummeled in the last half an hour to 45 minutes of trade. So obviously there were some key exits. Some bulk deals were there as well, which we saw. The key is, remember, at 315, it's very close to the support level because Sony effectively bought it at about 300. So could the downsides be protected, and uh, and would trade be dependent on that? I think you got to ask yourself that. Tech Mahindra, from amongst all the IT large caps that did okay, Tech Mahindra was on an exceptional spree, and I think it's been the best performing large cap IT name by a margin this year. So the good stock is performing better. You got to pay credence to that. Last but not the least, Grasim in amongst the large cap names, simply because caustic soda prices are doing well. Grasim has a large plant which is getting commissioned today. So I think there are a couple of sentimental triggers to Grasim as well. So you've got to be mindful of this stock. So those are the large caps in focus. Then the newsmakers. Great Eastern Shipping, they've approved a proposal for buyback of its fully paid up equity shares at 333 rupees a piece for about 225 crore rupees. That's one stock that you certainly got to keep in mind. 293 is the current market price. Maybe there's a bit of traction in that stock in the session today. Moil, they've approved a buyback of 3.38 crore shares at rupees 205 a piece. So again, a stock in focus, as well as Nucleus Software to buy back about 22 lakh shares at 700 rupees a piece. Again, a stock in focus. So those three on a buyback perspective in focus. That there's a news announcement that Bombay Stock Exchange will consider a bonus issue along with results on 8 February. It's too far off, but certainly a stock which has done well and could remain in focus. Inox Wind, they've approved a preferential issue of up to 10 lakh convertible warrants at 847 rupees a share. So that's um, that's an interesting piece of information. I hope I got it correct, but nevertheless, that looks interesting. Then Sasta Sundar Ventures, Ashish Kacholia has bought 2.25 lakh shares at a price of 447 rupees per share. Now, keep in mind, Ashish Kacholia already had some stake in Sasta Sundar Ventures, and he's only added more. But the key about this his thing, and even I didn't know too much about it, so I did some digging and spoke to some people. It's in the e-pharma business. The stock is up about 4 or 5 times this year. And from what I understand, recently Flipkart bought a stake in Sasta Sundar Marketplace, an online pharmacy and digital health platform as well. So seems to be a marketplace of Sasta Sundar Ventures. So uh, to look at it could be interesting. This one, if it does react today. And last but not the least, like I said, we'll end with some mid caps and small caps, which could be interesting. So HP Adhesives is listed yesterday, was on a 20% upper circuit. So do watch out whether this one has further follow on. As also these names, there are a bunch of stocks on an upper circuit, but I filtered through some of the names to try and figure out which ones looked a lot more reasonable, decent market cap, decent liquidity, and yet were locked on an upper circuit. So clearly something might be happening there. Now, I may not know what's happening there, but do watch out for automotive stampings, Butterfly Gandhimati and Copran. Each of these was on an upper circuit, decent volumes, decent market caps. Therefore, not sketchy names. That's the limited point I'm making. But do watch out for some of these names in the session today. All in all, stay lots of stocks to monitor today, but the index too will likely do well. So the sentiment doesn't look all that negative. Thanks so much for tuning into the trade setup. If you're stepping out though, please stay masked up. If you don't believe me, viewers, go to the Twitter account of Mr. Harsh Goenka. I think it's at the rate HV Goenka. And I think in it's yesterday's tweet wherein he mentions that how he's associated with a hospital and how 5 days ago that hospital had record low cases, and in 5 days the COVID ward is full of patients. And he urges everybody that forget partying, forget all the gatherings, but please wear your masks when you step outside. It is now serious. The numbers in India may not be looking all that bad, but we don't want them to reach the levels at which France and some of the other countries have. So it's imperative upon all of us to make sure that we stay safe and keep others safe, more importantly. You may have to step out. You may not have the luxury like me of staying at home and doing the work. But if you're stepping out, at least I request you, please do wear your masks. Thanks so much for tuning in today.